Hello, I'm Jeff Myers, and welcome to Elgin Today. On this edition, Mr. Chad Goodman is named as the new music director for the Elgin Symphony Orchestra. We will see Mayor David Captain and council member Steve Thorne as they unveil a famous landmark at Wing Park. Our segment with Mayor David Captain includes a conversation with the Superintendent of Parks and Facilities for Elgin, Mr. Greg Hulke. We'll have these stories and more on this edition of Elgin Today. It was a very historic night. May 17th, we're at Wing Park, and you, young councilman, you did a major thing tonight. Tell me what we're seeing.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Well, this is the rededication of the Wing Park Monument Stone. This stone was originally put here 100 years ago this spring, donated by the Elgin Women's Club, but it commemorates what Wing Park is. Wing Park's 121 acres, the People's Playground, as it says on the monument. William Wing donated this land, and in his will, it literally states to include the up-and-coming sport of golf, a 9-hole golf course. And in the will, it says for the residents of Elgin to be able to play for free. Well, that didn't last long, but it also stated that it had to have ball diamonds and tennis and horseshoes and swimming. Well, originally the swimming was, they dredged out a big area of the creek, and they added sand for a beach, and then later they built pools, and now the aquatic center. But the park is just a beautiful place.
And everything it is today. Now, the sign and the rock was in a different spot. That's what led this campaign with you and Jeff White, is that right?
That's correct. I had given many rides in my Model T and saw the stone. It was over by the maintenance department on a little one-way road that says do not enter, but I used to defy that and drive down it to show people the rock. But then one day when I saw Jeff White, an avid Elgin collector and historical volunteer up at the History Museum, he says, hey, you know that rock at Wing Park? You can get that moved, you know. And I was thinking, well, I guess as a councilman, I can make things happen. So I thought about it. I had already thought about it a little, and then little did he know I was so aware of it. Well, that prodded me. I thank Jeff for that push, and I went and started the talks with the Parks and Rec director, Maria Campana, and she and Greg Hulke made it happen, and they had me work with them. So I had me put it where I wanted it. They also had me help with the design of the sign.
Wonderful. And you said it's about entry into the Wing Park, and it's about 1/8 of a mile right down here, isn't it? It's real quick, isn't it?
About 1/8 of a mile into the park, right where the park makes a fork.
And a great sign.
One side, and it's got a nice sign there, and directions for different places to go to, and then it's got the monument.
I guess we can call this history moving into the present day.
That's it. Rediscover Wing Park again for the first time.
Thanks. We're delighted for our next segment. We introduce the new conductor for the Elgin Symphony Orchestra. And Chad Goodman, congratulations on your new job.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be joining this community, to be working with this orchestra.
You loved Elgin. You actually did the final concert of the year, May 6 and 7. Also, early in the year, you came for a look-see at Elgin, didn't you?
Absolutely. I knew once I had this invitation to come conduct as a candidate that I wanted to get to know the community better and hear the orchestra. So I snuck up here, so to speak, came up, heard the season opening concert, and was just blown away by the orchestra. But on top of that, it was just everywhere I was going, the restaurants I was eating at, coffee shops, people that I was just meeting, I was just taken aback by how kind, how warm everyone was. It was such an inviting community, and then I just had to impatiently wait for 7 months before I got to come back here to conduct the orchestra and work with them in May.
That's a great story. Rhapsody in Blue was what you performed there.
Absolutely. Rhapsody in Blue with an incredible soloist, Drew Peterson, and Beethoven's Seventh Symphony. It was phenomenal.
You mentioned it, but you got along so well, 80 members in the orchestra, and right off the bat, you got together.
Yeah, I always like to describe the first rehearsal with an orchestra as speed dating or something with 80 people at once. It's you have to figure out, how do we like to be spoken to? What are you offering here musically that I can bounce off of, and what can I share with you? And so you have to try and build this rapport very quickly, and you know it's right when it's right. And from the very start of that first rehearsal, we just had this really, really great connection.
Those are great stories. You're a natural. How did it come to your mind to be a conductor?
So actually, it was not something that I had thought of when I was younger. You often hear these stories where conductors were, setting up stuffed animals in their childhood bedrooms, and they're conducting them. And I wanted to be an orchestral trumpet player. And actually, I started in jazz, so it was just trumpet was my life. And I went to the conservatory for my bachelor's, and I even studied in grad school trumpet. And it was while I was there that one of the conducting professors pulled me aside, and he said, I love what you do on trumpet, and I love all these conversations we have about music. I just have a feeling you would make a great conductor. Can I mentor you? Can I just give you lessons?
Who did you look to trumpet-wise over the years?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, from the jazz world, Chet Baker was my idol, absolute idol. Louis Armstrong, of course, Clifford Brown. And then in the classical world, it was all the leaders here. It was Bud Herseth, principal trumpet, of course, for decades with Chicago Symphony, Philip Smith with New York Philharmonic. So I had a lot of inspiration just musically, and it all naturally, it channels into who you become as a conductor. You know, having that background on an instrument has a profound impact on how I am able to lead and relate to the musicians I'm working with on stage.
Now, as we talk, you tell us a little bit about your background. Most recently, you've been working in Miami and San Francisco.
Yes, from 2019 until this past May 2023, I was the conducting fellow and assistant at the New World Symphony in Miami, working with the great Michael Tilson Thomas, who was a co-founder there, and it's just an extraordinary institution. And alongside that, I've been working as an assistant conductor with the San Francisco Symphony. So I've been able to find inspiration from so many people, you know, all over the country, and it's really had a big impact on everything that I feel like I'm bringing in when I'm making music with others.
Great.
Yeah.
And here, everybody in the office loves you.
I feel a great connection. It really is. There's so many things about this position here that just, it felt like it was meant to be. You can't really put words on it, but I feel like such a symbiotic relationship with the community, with the staff here, the board, and with, of course, the musicians. It's been really spectacular.
We've signed you up for a 15-year contract. Is that correct? You're young.
I would be very happy with that, but just thrilled to get started on this right now.
You have written a book, is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, I wrote a book on the music business and basically giving advice to young musicians on how to transition from studying music at university to making a living. How do you freelance? How do you start getting your first gigs? How do you find students to teach? And it's not something that's taught all of the time, and you have to just sort of learn that on your own. And so I wanted to sort of share that with the next generation.
That's great. Well, you've got great energy level, and you're a charming man, so we appreciate you picking out Elgin and being your spot.
It's a privilege. I can't wait to be a member of this community and start working again with this orchestra.
The 74th season opens in October, is that right?
Exactly.
What's going to be on the dossier that night?
It's going to be extraordinary. We're opening with Mozart's Overture to the Magic Flute, and then we're going into Strauss's gorgeous romantic four last songs. We have Christine Brewer as our vocal soloist. She was just a powerhouse, legendary, sang at the Met for years and years, so we're so lucky to have her, just superstar status. And we're closing with Rachmaninoff's Symphonic Dances, which is just, it will pull at heartstrings, I promise you that. It's going to be a great set of concerts.
That was exactly the summer show we had planned here.
Yeah.
No, you're a charming man. Congratulations. We're delighted you chose Elgin and the Symphony Orchestra here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Chad Goodman, we appreciate you being aboard. We're delighted to have this segment coming your way in Elgin today, our June edition. We're talking with Mayor David Captain. Mayor, we are outside today.
Yes, we are. We're out at the beautiful Bluff City Cemetery. And, I thought it was an appropriate time to come out here after Memorial Day. And we had a solemn presentation and a solemn ceremony out here. But to come back and talk about the nuts and bolts of what happens out here and what we have to do. With us today is Greg Halke. Greg is in charge of a lot of the maintenance on the city, on our Parks Department, on our streets, out at Bluff, some of the work out at Bluff City Cemetery. And one of the things that Greg did that was recognized by the community, he received an award for heritage and for preservation. And behind us is the Snow Mausoleum. And Greg was responsible for helping bring that back to life. And Greg, tell us about that process. And it was took a long time, but the mausoleum had fallen into disrepair and needed to have some work done on it.
Again, congratulations on your May 2nd award for the Mayor's Award for Preservation. It's beautiful. We're seeing it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Tell me how this all came about.
Well, when I first took over was promoted to be superintendent, I was put in charge of the cemetery and came down here and working with the staff that's down here, Rick Ellis and Jenny Burke now. They identified some structures that needed some repair, and this was by far the most egregious one of them all. So we started to look at that and started to get some contractors in to figure out how much this was going to cost, what it was going to take, and eventually ended up working with Marion Restoration to restore the mausoleum to the beauty that it does have now.
As the snow mausoleum is. And we looked at it, Mayor, and Greg was telling us before this that he changed a lot of it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. There was a lot of work to do on the outside, and the mortar and between the bricks and the granite there had to be worked on. Door had to be worked on. Some of the roof was in sad shape, and it's just I think I want to bring that to the attention of the community that we have an obligation out here. That this is part of our heritage and part of our history, and some of the people that are buried here, their family has all passed on or they've moved on, and they don't live in Elgin anymore. Some of the mausoleums obviously have been here over 100 years, and they're starting to fall into disrepair. So we have an obligation to make sure that those stay, and as part of our history, we do a cemetery walk out here every year. It's very popular, and I think that's something that I'd like Greg to talk a little bit about, is how do we see moving forward on this? Where does the money come from to pay for this?
Very good question.
Going forward, I'd like to get I want to get a restoration company back in here to go through everything and see everything that needs to be repaired. Inspect all the rest of the mausoleums so that they don't fall into the same kind of disrepair that the snow mausoleum did.
Do we have a number of how many we have?
Offhand, I don't remember the number offhand how many we have. I apologize. But that going forward, we have an operational fund here at the cemetery that helps us pay for a lot of the things that happen here. So anytime we have purchase, recently we sold a large section to a Muslim group down on the far east end of the cemetery. Anything above and beyond our operational costs every year goes into our operational fund, and we pay for upkeep through that fashion. So, and also every time someone purchases a grave out here, there is a perpetual care fund that gets boosted, and that is not usable until the entire cemetery is sold out and is left to be upkeep, as when we're not generating any more money from the cemetery.
Great detail on the snow mausoleum, as you mentioned. How long did this take you to do this?
Well, for me, I wrote a memo. I saw it needed to be done, and I wrote a memo and got it through council. Through their approval. But time-wise, a couple of months to work with Marion to get everything in order. A month or so to get it through council, and then it took them. I'm trying to remember, probably about 4 to 5 months to completely deconstruct what they needed to deconstruct, because it was so degraded that they had to basically take off sections of the roof and deconstruct halfway down each side, and then put it all back together again with mortar and whatnot, so that it was sturdy. So that took a good 4 or 5 months. And then the following year they came and they got the door, and that was with them for about a year for them to go in and repair all the metal, replace the needed glass, re-lead all the glass. They took it apart basically and put it all back together over the course of about a year.
You talked with a family member. They really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yes. One family member that I believe is left around. His name is Tom Lord. I did speak with him before working on this, because I wanted his input, and also since these are all privately owned, I was hoping to see if maybe he wanted to help pay for a little of it. That being said, the thousands and thousands of dollars this cost was not within his budget to work any of these repairs. So I talked with him. He's been down here, I believe, after the fact. I know he's aware that it's done, and I know he's pleased that it's been rehabbed.
It is beautiful here, so that just adds to it more, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and it adds to the integrity and quality of the grounds. And people. I have family out here, and as part of our family tradition, my sister and I'll be out here decorating graves. We've decorated graves for years. My parents did it before us, and I think a lot of people do that. And so it's part of our heritage to make sure that we keep those up, and our own small part. The city does own one mausoleum out here, one vault. We call it the City Vault, and it was built back in around 1900. The purpose at that time was they couldn't dig the graves in the dead of the winter, so they had to store the bodies until they could be interred in the springtime. And, at that time, I was told that, and one time I was told that they also looked at that as something when the city started to get overwhelmed with the flu in 1918. They could not possibly bury people fast enough. so they had started to inter people in there. And I don't know if that was true or not, but it would make some sense that they just couldn't. There wasn't enough staff to keep up, and so that was a temporary resting place for people. But anyway, it's about the history. It's about the history of our community, and just driving through here, if you have a chance as a resident, please come out and drive through the cemetery. It's in beautiful condition.
It is.
After the Memorial Day services, and take a look at the people that are out here, and you'll recognize some names that are on these stones out here. There are streets named after them today, and they're our heritage and are part of our great history.
We have the most beautiful trees here as well, don't we?
Absolutely, and you raised the question. I'm sure some of them were here, but when this was built in the 1880s, they may have planted a lot of trees at that time, so they are 100 years old. That's also part of Greg's responsibility when we look at this, is to trim this. And I remember we had a storm come through a few years ago, and it caused a lot of problems out here. And I always say, if we don't trim them, God's going to trim them for you. But that's part of this as well, and it's part of the maintenance of the grounds out here.
Did we leave any details out on your fine work?
Not that I can
You're
think
proud of that knowledge.
I'm definitely proud of how the snow mausoleum turned out, and I'm proud that the cemetery is starting to look better. So, like I said, there's a lot of work needs to be done here. Grounds maintenance every day. I've got a great contract company that does all that for us, and they're fantastic. And yes, you're right, Mr. Mayor. The trees, there are plenty of them that are more than likely well over 100 years old. So, and probably were here when especially when the snow mausoleum was built, and probably for 20, 25 years prior to that.
But Mayor, in the modern day, the cremation folks going that way, there's a whole new source there, isn't there?
Yeah, it is, and it's kind of changed the financial structure out here a little bit as well, because we don't do as many burials, and they are people have gone back to cremation, and even if they do, the plots are not as big anymore, so there's some economy there. But people do different things with the remains, family remains, and it's part of the changes. So we change with we try to be flexible, but it's a change in the time, and you have to remember back that many of the people that were first interred here came from Channing Street, where Channing School was at, and that was the original cemetery. But when the city started to grow around it, they moved to the outskirts. And here we are.
Down to about 90 seconds. Did we leave anything out?
Since the mayor brought up, the cremations and whatnot, yes, that is the trend currently, is that, we're starting to get more cremations. So I know the percentages are increasing. I talked to my contractor. He knows those percentages like the back of his hand. But yeah, that is definitely something that's coming up and getting more. And we've, at the entrance to the cemetery, we have a columbarium walk that we've started, so that we can address that when it does. We've got 96 new spots in there that went in about 3 years ago, and we put the walk in so that we can we have the ability to add columbariums around that space. So we're trying to create a nice columbarium garden for people to go and look and make improvements in there, hopefully this summer as well, with a pergola or a fountain of some sort, as well as in-ground cremation burials. So we try and reach every aspect of how things need to be.
Keep up with the times.
Yep, exactly.
We're down to about 20 seconds. How was your vacation?
It was great.
That's enough.
Never a bad vacation. No, and it's always good to be back, and it's always good to be back in at Bluff City Cemetery. My favorite job. I started here when I was
What'd you do?
16, cut grass.
All right.
16 years old. Best job I ever had. Best job I'll ever have.
And to close the show, he's going to do that again, aren't you?
Yeah, there we go. I could probably run it for you.
We got a mower just for you.
Yeah,
all right. Thanks, Frank.
No problem.
Mayor, as always, you're a delight.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll see you in a month.
All right, that's our segment with Mayor David Captain. Put you.
Estamos muy unidos aquí con tantas diferentes organizaciones, una gran colaboración. Estamos aquí con diferentes organizaciones de nuestra comunidad de Elgin. Estamos con la ciudad de Elgin, Centro de Información, tenemos a la YWCA. ¿Quién más me falta? A ver, díganme, la biblioteca, no puede faltar la biblioteca con nosotros. ¿Quién más me falta? El ICC, Elgin Community College, no nos puede faltar. Diferentes organizaciones, personas voluntarias de nuestra comunidad. Y estamos unidos en sí porque queremos hacer un homenaje a nuestros ciudadanos que se acaban en sí de hacerse ciudadanos de Elgin. Y para eso vamos a empezar contigo, Gio. Dinos un poquito realmente qué es lo que vamos a tener que se nos va a aproximar próximamente.
Sí, la ciudad de Elgin está invitando a la comunidad de Elgin aquellos que se hayan convertido ciudadanos en los últimos 12 meses a este evento que se celebra cada año por los últimos 23 años. Este evento será el 20 de junio, es un martes, a las 7 de la tarde. Será en el Heritage Ballroom, aquí en el Center of Elgin. Pueden invitar a su familia, amigos, a los que quieran invitar, pueden venir aquí.
Es una gran oportunidad porque a veces se han podido ser ciudadanos solitos y no tienen ese apoyo. Es que pueden traer a la abuelita, al abuelito, al tío, la tía y todo el mundo en la familia, ¿verdad? Tienen que registrarse. ¿Cómo van a organizarse de esa forma?
Sí, tenemos un código en línea donde se puede registrar la gente. Eso nos dejará saber más o menos cuánta gente va a llegar a ese evento para prepararnos para la comida, refresco que vamos a servir.
Qué bonito que en sí haya mucha colaboración para que todo el mundo se sienta en unión y tengamos ese apoyo. Ani, dinos un poquito realmente, porque tú estás de experiencia, recién, felicidades, acabas de ser ciudadana. Gracias. Platícanos un poquito, ¿cómo fue tu experiencia? Danos un poquito de detalles.
Sí, yo me hice ciudadana en febrero del 2021.
Sí.
Lo único triste es que yo no pude tener ahí nadie apoyándome.
Ay, en ese momento tan difícil, ¿verdad? Que dices, tú quieres ese apoyo, esa emoción,
sí,
que realmente por fin.
Yo tuve ahí mi papá, mi esposo, mis hermanos y ni uno pudieron llegar conmigo.
Más pesado, ¿no? Qué difícil, qué difícil. Pero ahora vamos a celebrarlo,
sí.
Darte ese homenaje, ese honor en sí, realmente celebrar, porque es un gran paso. Sí. Felicidades por eso.
Muchas gracias.
Platícanos un poquito.
Este evento yo tengo el honor para hablar y contar de mi historia. Les quiero contar de cómo yo me hice ciudadana, porque yo también tenía DACA. Soy una dreamer.
Llegaste al próximo paso.
Sí,
ya sí se puede.
Sí, para que miren que sí se puede.
Vas a contar tu historia y estoy emocionada para escuchar todos los detalles porque realmente va a motivar a otras personas que quizás estén en tu situación y digan, ¿podría hacerlo? ¿No podría? ¿Qué se puede hacer? Felicidades y vas a ser un gran ejemplo para motivar a otras personas, definitivamente. Mi Marita, dinos un poquito, porque tú realmente tienes un gran papel. Dinos un poquito de lo que haces en Centro de Información.
Yo soy la consejera de inmigración, tengo 10 años haciendo este trabajo.
Ya un buen tiempo, tienes buen callo, es que tienes buena experiencia.
Y normalmente el proceso vemos quién califica para la ciudadanía. Verificamos el tiempo que son residentes permanentes, que serían 5 años o 3 años si su residencia es basada con un matrimonio de un ciudadano americano. También verificamos si la persona va a hacer el examen en su idioma nativo, en español, inglés o cualquier otro idioma. A veces tenemos clientes que vienen de la India.
Y qué bueno saber eso.
Y depende de la edad que tienen ellos.
¿Se les puede acomodar?
Y el tiempo de residencia, le indicamos, ok, usted puede llevar.
No, a veces no hay que digamos, estoy muy viejito para tratar. Sí, hay ese apoyo. Ay, qué bien, qué bien. Pues felicidades, porque realmente es mucha información saber. Tú eres la persona que podemos ir a preguntar y hacerle tantas preguntas. ¿Qué hago? ¿Puedo o no puedo?
Sí, y también le hacemos como un screening, una evaluación para ver si ellos necesitan traer más evidencias y ver si califican, en vez de decirles sí, llenamos la aplicación y la persona puede tener algo que puede afectar su residencia permanente.
Si alguien tiene dudas, ¿irían contigo para preguntarte o realmente tienen que tener todo en orden antes de verte?
Normalmente no, ellos van el día del taller y ahí en ese mismo día le hago yo la evaluación a ellos. Y le digo si califican o no califican, si tienen que traer cualquier otra evidencia.
Y realmente tú estás en Centro de Información, saben dónde comunicarse contigo para que así nos podamos orientar.
Y pueden también solicitar una consulta si no quieren ir al taller, una consulta, y entonces ahí yo los preparo también de decir, ok, esto no pueden o si pueden seguir adelante con el proceso.
Mucha información y la verdad te agradecemos y especialmente tanta orientación que has hecho con tantas personas en la comunidad, que muchas gracias. De tantos años que has hecho, yo sé que es mucho trabajo, pero te lo agradecemos sinceramente porque ese es un gran apoyo que se necesita en nuestra comunidad.
Para eso estamos, ayudar a nuestra comunidad latina.
Nos encanta ese apoyo que tenemos de la comunidad. No, platícanos un poquito.
Sí, yo ayudo con llenar las aplicaciones de la ciudadanía con Vian. Ya que tengan toda la información lista, les platico durante el proceso a ver la información que ocupan o lo que ya tienen listo, y también es muy importante que entienden lo de la aplicación,
Sí.
porque hay veces que la gente cree que nomás son las preguntas que tiene que estudiar,
Ajá.
pero también es la aplicación que es muy importante.
¿Y tú les ayudas con ese proceso?
Sí, yo voy por paso y paso,
Ajá.
con cada pregunta, preguntarles a ver si me entienden, especialmente si está en inglés la aplicación o el examen que va a tomar ellos. Porque en español es más fácil porque les pueden traducir y todo eso. Ya en inglés, si la gente no entiende mucho en inglés, ya se le puede hacer más difícil, y ahí le estamos ayudando paso por paso a ver si de verdad lo entienden.
Sinceramente, qué apoyo tan enorme, que en sí casi siento que estás agarrándome la mano y llevándome al pasito, porque creo que eso es muy difícil en diferentes lugares, y creo que estamos muy bendecidos que juntos trabajamos para ayudar a las personas a sentirse con esa seguridad. Y si tengo dudas, ustedes nos ayudan. Es que realmente les felicito porque es un gran trabajo. Esto es muy difícil y un poco espantoso, porque qué tal si no lo hago, qué tal si repruebo, qué tal, y con esos qué tales que a veces nos retrasemos y no lo hacemos. Es que felicidades por todo eso. Diana, yo sé que tú has hecho mucho en nuestra comunidad, siempre estás viendo y abogando por las personas y tratando de unir todo eso. Platícanos un poquito de lo que ha sido tu experiencia, que es la meta.
Sí, pues para mí es un gran orgullo vivir en esta ciudad de Elgin, que celebra a todos los que son recién ciudadanos de nuestro país, de los Estados Unidos. Este evento es de parte de varias agencias que están trabajando juntos para ayudar a la comunidad latina. La biblioteca de Gail Borden, Elgin Community College, Centro de Información, también YWCA de Elgin, y también Chinese Mutual Aid, y también en Elgin History Museum. ¿Y quién más? Literacy Connection, que tienen sus oficinas aquí en la biblioteca de Gail Borden. Así es que todos nos estamos contribuyendo al evento con ayuda de los patrocinadores que nos ayuden para hacer esta celebración muy importante. Vamos a tener más de 100 personas que se han hecho ciudadanos.
¡Qué emoción, la verdad! ¡Qué bueno!
En los últimos 12 meses. Sí. Así es que 100 personas más sus familiares y sus amigos. Vamos a tener el ballroom del Heritage Ballroom.
Que se armó la pachaca, porque ya sabes que tenemos que hacer un buen relajo.
Se va a llenar, así es que por favor vayan a registrarse ahí en el sitio web que tenemos puesto
Vamos a tener el enlace.
Así es que no se olviden, el 20 de junio a las 7 de la noche.
Un día muy importante, no se lo pierdan. En sí, Jessica, también dinos un pequeño regalo que van a tener.
Creo que ya todos lo dijeron todo. Es algo muy emocionante para que las personas vengan a compartir con sus familias.
Claro.
Para la biblioteca es un honor compartir el espacio que proveen todas estas organizaciones. Nuestro trabajo es informar y estamos muy bendecidos de poder trabajar con muchas organizaciones que proveen estos servicios para la comunidad. Y claro, la biblioteca nunca se queda atrás.
No, ustedes hacen tanto que nunca termina y no sé cómo le hacen, pero ustedes siempre tienen su granito de arena, portan y ustedes traen tanta apoyo en la comunidad que se le agradece.
Aparte de tener nuestra mesa de información para proveer los servicios que provee la biblioteca, también vamos a tener un broche que vamos a repartir a todos los participantes. Es algo muy emotivo, ya que veo muchos familiares que vienen y siempre cuando pasan por nuestra mesa quieren saber que pueden tener un broche, porque es algo muy emotivo. Llegaron a este capítulo punto, y es un nuevo comienzo para todos ellos, así es que es un honor ser parte de ese evento.
Muchas gracias, y gracias a todos porque realmente se han unido a hacer una gran diferencia en nuestra comunidad, a motivar a las personas que si aún no se han hecho ciudadanos, es importante, y mira todo lo que hay, cómo se unen las personas, cuántos vamos a hacer. Algo muy importante es que si aún no se ha hecho ciudadano, mira, tenemos hasta que le agarren de la mano, los lleven y hasta les van a dar su obsequio. Muy importante es que la verdad les agradezco esa colaboración de diferentes organizaciones, los patrocinadores, es que estamos muy bendecidos en esta comunidad de Elgin. Felicidades a las personas que se han llegado a ser ciudadanos, y los esperamos el 20 de junio, no se lo pierdan, un día muy padre, muy especial. Empezamos el verano y tenemos una gran fiesta que vamos a ir a celebrar a todas las personas bien merecidas, especialmente con los que estuvieron solos y tuvieron que recibir ese reconocimiento sin el apoyo de la familia. Es un momento de que nos unamos y nos traigamos todos juntos en unión. Gracias por todo, los esperamos el 20 de junio. ¿A qué hora será? Se me perdió.
A las 7.
A las 7, no se lo
lleguen antes de las 7.
Lleguen antes, no lleguen como mexicanos a tiempo.
Otra cosa, si no saben utilizar el QR, también pueden llamar al centro de información, preguntan por Mirna Montilla y o ECC con Alina Copper.
Ok, si acaso
en la
tenemos
invitación están los números de teléfono.
Vamos a poner los números de teléfono para que llamen si al caso los códigos se les hace complicado y no saben cómo imprimir y todo eso. Ahí le vamos a tener la información. Si no, nos manden mensaje. Los esperamos. No se pierdan el 20 de junio. Hasta luego. Adiós.
Adiós.
Bye. For more information, please visit cityofelgin.org. Para más información, por favor visite nuestra página cityofelgin.org. Don't forget, for city services, call 311. Call, click, connect. Para servicios de la ciudad, no olvide llamar 311, llamar, conectar y textear.